The night 7-year-old Jasper Decker stopped breathing in the alley off West Huron Street. 36 people walked past him. A city surveillance camera caught every single one of them. Heads down, collars up against the February wind, not one person breaking stride. But the 37th person stopped. She thought she was saving a lost child. She had absolutely no idea she was about to unravel a betrayal that had been building in silence for 2 years inside the most dangerous organization in Chicago. Simone Vale was 26 years old and running on the kind of exhaustion that caffeine had long since stopped touching. 16 hours into a double shift at Cook County Hospital, she had $22 in her bank account, a student loan payment 3 days past due, and a dead car she'd been meaning to get towed since January. She was walking the 6 blocks to the bus stop because that was her life, practical, stripped down, no margin for error. Her scrubs were the color of old mint and smelled like antiseptic and cold brew. It was 11 degrees. It was 2:47 in the morning. She almost missed him entirely. He was tucked between a dumpster and the concrete wall of a parking garage on West Huron, half hidden in shadow, sitting upright because lying flat had stopped being possible. Simone caught the sound first, that distinctive high-pitched wheeze, that terrible pulling effort of a chest, working 3 times as hard as it should just to move air. She'd heard that sound in triage. She recognized it, the way you recognize your own name being called. She was already moving before she'd decided to move. Up close, the details resolved in the yellow light from the street. He was maybe 7, small for his age, wearing a charcoal cashmere coat and leather boots that had no business being anywhere near an alley. His lips were taking on a grayish tint at the edges. His eyes were open, and they found her face, and they held on. "Hey," Simone said, dropping to her knees on the wet concrete without thinking about it. "Hey, I've got you. I'm a nurse. Can you tell me your name?" His lips moved. Jasper. "Okay, Jasper. I need you to sit up straight for me, like you're trying to make yourself as tall as possible. Good, just like that." She was already running her hands over him clinically, checking his airway, his color, the work of his breathing. She unzipped his coat to watch his chest. His little sternum was retracting visibly with every breath, a sign she'd seen enough times to know meant they were running short on time. "Do you have an inhaler anywhere? In your pockets? Your bag?" He shook his head slowly. His eyes were starting to go glassy. "Okay." She pulled out her own phone and dialed 911, rattling off the cross street and the situation with the mechanical efficiency of someone who'd done it 100 times. Then, keeping one hand on the boy's back, she reached over and checked his wrist. There was a slim metal ID bracelet there, the kind wealthy parents had engraved for exactly this situation. She flipped it over. A 10-digit phone number. Below it, in small capital letters, "If call, his name is Jasper." She called. One ring, then a voice, low, quiet, completely controlled, and underneath the control, something coiled and dangerous that she registered in her stomach before she understood it with her brain. "Where is he?" Not a question, a fact he was waiting to be completed. "He's with me," Simone said, one hand still on Jasper's back. "I found him on the alley off West Huron near North Wells. He's having a severe asthma attack. We have an ambulance coming. We're going to Northwestern Memorial. He's alive and he's conscious, but you need to get there now." A pause of maybe 2 seconds. "Who are you?" "I'm a nurse." I stopped when I heard him struggling to breathe. She kept her voice level. "I'm doing my job. You can ask everything else when you get to the hospital. Right now I need you to let me focus on your son." She hung up and turned her full attention back to Jasper, keeping him sitting upright, talking to him steadily about nothing in particular. The color of her bus, what she'd eaten for lunch, the name of her fish, until the ambulance lights lit up the mouth of the alley 4 minutes later. 10 blocks away, in the reinforced back room of a private members club on North Dearborn, a room that did not appear in the building's floor plan and had no windows, Holt Decker set his phone face down on the table. The 8 men around him went still. They had learned over years to read the specific quality of silence that followed news about his son. Holt stood. He was 6'2" and built like someone who had once used his body as a primary tool and had simply never stopped maintaining it. At 42, he wore the kind of contained physical authority that had nothing to do with youth. He buttoned his overcoat in two precise movements. Dex. Car, now. Leonard Fane, seated at Holt's left, silver-haired, bespoke navy suit, his wire-rimmed glasses catching the low light, smoothly set down his pen. I'll come with you. Holt was already moving toward the door. No, hold the room. I'll call when I know something. Northwestern Memorial's emergency wing had seen its share of dramatic entrances. It had never seen Holt Decker. He came through the automatic doors with 5 men in dark coats, moving in a loose formation behind him, and the murmuring waiting area restructured itself around them the way a crowd does when it registers instinctively that it wants to make space. The triage desk went quiet. A child somewhere stopped crying. Holt scanned the room once, found her immediately. She was the one who looked like she'd been in a fight with the night and hadn't lost. Scrubs, hospital ID badge, still clipped to her chest, a dried coffee stain on her sleeve, standing by the vending machine because she was too keyed up to sit. She was watching the doors to the treatment area, not the entrance, which meant she hadn't been watching for him. She'd been watching for the doctor. He crossed the room in 4 strides. She turned at the last moment, and to her credit, she didn't flinch. He stopped 2 feet away. Up close, she was direct-eyed, dark-haired, composed in the way people get when they've spent years managing other people's worst moments. She looked at him the way she probably looked at patients who were going to be difficult, with patience and zero intimidation. "You called me," he said. "I did." She held his gaze steadily. "Jasper is with the attending physician right now. His oxygen saturation is coming back up. He's going to be okay." Holt's jaw moved once. Something in his chest shifted in a way he hadn't felt in 2 years and didn't particularly have language for. How long was he alone out there? "I don't know. Long enough." She let that sit, not unkindly, but letting it land where it was supposed to. The paramedic said 3 more minutes, maybe 4, and he'd have been in respiratory failure. The doors to the treatment bay opened. Dr. Osi, the attending, came out pulling down his mask. He looked at the wall of men, found Holt's face, and came directly to him. Jasper was stable, he said. O2 levels were recovering, but there was a complicating factor from the blood work. A sedative compound, fast-acting and precisely dosed, present in the boy's system. Not accidental, calibrated. Someone had drugged him before he'd ended up in that alley. The waiting room was very quiet. Holt stood very still. When he spoke, his voice had gone to a place that was past anger, something older and colder and more absolute. Which room is he in? He went to Jasper first. Of course he went to Jasper first. Dex directed the rest of the detail while Holt spent 40 minutes at his son's bedside. And when he came back out, his face was the kind of flat that meant he'd locked everything down behind it, because the alternative wasn't useful right now. He found Simone still in the waiting room. She hadn't left. "You're still here," he said. "He's a kid," she said simply. "I wanted to know he was okay." He studied her for a moment. Mrs. Vale. He said her name like he'd already looked it up while he was sitting with Jasper. "My people recovered the alley footage. You're visible on city traffic cameras on West Huron for 8 minutes before the ambulance arrived. The individuals responsible for placing Jasper there will pull the same footage by morning. They won't know what you did or didn't take from him. They'll assume the worst." Simone went still. "I'm a nurse. I don't have anything." "That's not what they'll assume." His phone vibrated. He looked at the screen for 1 second, then turned it to face her. It was a live feed from a security camera. Her building on North Dammon Avenue. She recognized the entry gate immediately, and there were 2 men moving through the ground floor footage, one entering through the side window near the laundry room. The timestamp read 3:22 a.m., 6 minutes ago. She looked at it for a long time, without saying anything. She had a second-hand couch, a one-eyed bed of fish named Pepper, 3 nursing textbooks she'd been meaning to sell online since October, and right now 2 men she had never met and had done nothing to were inside her apartment because a child had been breathing wrong in an alley. "The debt belongs to me," Holt said quietly. "Not to you. You didn't walk into this. You were pulled. That means this is mine to fix." He nodded to Dex. Get Ms. Vale's things, whatever she needs. She stays in the East Wing until I know the perimeter is clean." Simone looked at him for a long moment. She thought about her options. She thought about North Dammon Avenue at 3 a.m. and two men going through her kitchen, looking for something she didn't have. She went. The Decker compound was 40 minutes outside the city, in a suburb that appeared ordinary from the outside and was anything but. The gates were reinforced steel. The cameras were thermal. The men at the perimeter moved with the practiced efficiency of people who treated security as a technical problem and had solved it thoroughly. The house itself was large and quietly expensive. No chandeliers, no marble, nothing designed to impress, designed to last. Simone was given a room on the second floor and told to get some rest. She lay on the bed in her dirty scrubs and stared at the ceiling and did not sleep. Somewhere below her she could hear Holt's voice, low and relentless, methodical, going through names. His house staff, one by one. She listened to the cadence of it and thought about the sedative compound in Jasper's blood work. Pharmaceutical-grade precision, not street chemistry. Someone who had access. Someone who knew the boy's schedule, the car routes, the pattern of the security rotations. The housekeeper, Mrs. Dolan, brought coffee at 7 a.m. and told Simone quietly that Mr. Decker hadn't left Jasper's room until half an hour ago. Sat in that chair the entire night, she said. Wouldn't let anyone else stay with him. At 9:30, a soft knock came at Simone's door. She opened it. Jasper stood there in pajamas, a stuffed dog tucked under his arm. Two enormous security guards hovering behind him with expressions of profound awkwardness. "Dad said I could visit," he said. "Then come in," Simone said, and held the door open. He sat on the edge of the chair near the window and looked at her with the serious, assessing eyes of a child who had decided to run a thorough evaluation. "You talked to me in the alley," he said finally. "You talked the whole time, even when I couldn't really talk back. You told me about your fish." "His name is Pepper," Simone said. "He only has one eye. I found him at a pet store, and they were basically giving him away because nobody wanted him, which I thought was extremely unfair." Jasper considered this. "Is he okay?" "I'm working on finding out." She kept her voice easy. "How are you feeling?" "Better." He shifted. Then quietly, "I don't really remember how I got to the alley. I remember being in the car, and Mr. Fain's friend gave me something, and he said it was a vitamin that would help me relax on the ride, and then I don't remember." Simone kept her expression calm. Her hands were very still in her lap. "Who is Mr. Fain?" "Uncle Len. He's not really my uncle. He does work stuff with Dad. He comes for dinner." Jasper picked at the ear of his stuffed dog. His friend had a hurt on his hand, like a really old scar, big one, on the back part. Simone looked at him. The pieces were assembling themselves in her mind, the way patient information assembled in triage. Quickly, in order, no step skipped. A pharmaceutical sedative, precisely dosed. Someone with household access who knew Jasper's schedule and the day's car route. Leonard Fain, 11 years at Holt's side, present at the hospital when the doctor delivered the toxicology results. She replayed that moment. The waiting room, Holt's face, Dex's face, the other men's faces, and Leonard Fain, composed and gracious, adjusting his cufflink. Checking his watch, once, precisely, not his phone, his watch, analog. Like a man checking whether a timeline had held. She stood up carefully. "Jasper, I want you to stay here with Mrs. Dolan for a few minutes, okay? Can you do that?" He looked at her with those serious eyes. "Is something wrong?" "I just need to talk to your dad." She kept her voice steady. "Everything is fine." She went downstairs. The study was full. Holt at the center of it behind a dark oak desk, Dex to his right, two other senior men flanking the room, and Leonard Fain, seated in the leather chair near the window, reading through a document with the calm of a man who had decided that calm was his best available armor. Dex moved the moment Simone came through the door. Holt stopped him with two words, "Let her." Simone walked into the center of the room and looked at Holt. "Jasper told me that Leonard Fain introduced him to a friend yesterday before the car ride. The friend gave him something and told him it was a vitamin." She kept her voice level and her eyes on Holt. He also described the man's hand. Old scar, jagged across the back of the right hand. The room had gone very still. Leonard Fane looked up from his document. His expression was pleasant and measured. She's clearly exhausted. The stress of last night. At the hospital, Simone continued, not looking at Fane. When Dr. Osi told us Jasper had been sedated, you checked your watch. Analog watch, left wrist. You didn't look at your phone, you looked at the watch. The kind of check someone makes when they're tracking whether something went according to schedule. Holt turned slowly in his chair to look at Leonard Fane. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The quality of his silence was its own complete sentence. Dex was already on his tablet. I pulled all visitor logs from the past 72 hours. His voice was flat. Mr. Fane authorized a contractor onto the property at 3:15 p.m. yesterday, listed as HVAC maintenance. The entry badge photo. He turned the screen around. A man caught in the gate camera at a slight angle, right hand clearly visible as he passed his badge to the reader. A scar, jagged, old, across the back of the hand. Fane moved for the door. He was 61 years old and in reasonable health for his age, and Dex was 34 and had spent 12 years being exactly what he was. Fane didn't make it 2 steps. Holt stood up from behind the desk. He moved slowly, which was somehow worse than if he'd moved fast. He crossed the room and stopped in front of the man who had worked beside him for 11 years, who had attended his wedding, who had stood at the graveside when Jasper's mother was buried, and he looked at him for a long time, with an expression that contained no heat at all. "You brought someone into this house," Holt said very quietly. "You put something in my son's food. You had him sedated and placed in an alley in 11-degree weather in February." A pause. "And then you came to the hospital, and you stood next to me, and you watched me find out." Fane's composure had cracked through entirely now. His hands were shaking. "The Marcellos approached me 18 months ago. What they were offering. I don't need to hear it." Holt's voice hadn't risen by a single degree. "There isn't an amount." He stepped back, looked at Dex. "Take him downstairs. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And someone call the Marcello organization and let them know that the terms of whatever arrangement they made are about to be returned to them in full." They took Leonard Fane out of the room. The heavy door shut behind them and the study went quiet. Simone stood in the middle of it and breathed. 3 years in ER trauma, she knew the architecture of violence, what it looked like in an X-ray, what it cost in blood pressure and cortisol, what it did to the people it moved through. She understood, standing here, that the basement of this house was about to become a very unpleasant place for a very specific reason, and she understood why, and she did not pretend it didn't exist. Holt turned back to face her. The murderous focus slowly bled out of his expression, leaving something heavier and more human underneath. The particular exhaustion of a person who has been holding something enormous at arm's length for hours and can finally let it sit for 1 minute. He went to the side table, poured 2 glasses of bourbon, crossed the room and held one out to her. She took it, drank. "You noticed the watch," he said. "I notice things. It's what I do." She turned the glass slowly in her hands. "Nurses spend a lot of time watching people pretend they're fine when they're not. You get calibrated to the small signals, where the eyes go, what the hands do, what someone checks when they're trying to look like they're not checking anything." She paused. Fane checked his watch because he needed to know if the timeline held. He was too controlled to check his phone. Phones can be logged, but he couldn't quite stop himself from needing to know. Holt was looking at her with an expression she couldn't entirely parse. Like she was something that kept failing to resolve into a category he recognized. "Jasper asked for you this morning," he said. "Before I came downstairs, specifically, by name." He set his glass down. "He hasn't asked for anyone specifically in about 2 years." She didn't say anything. "Your apartment on North Dammon is compromised," he said. "Fane aside, the Marcellos have your face. The appropriate response is relocation, somewhere they have no reason to look. I have resources that can make that straightforward. Transfer your nursing license, establish you cleanly somewhere new. You'd be untouchable within the week." He opened the desk drawer and set a slim envelope on the surface. "That covers 6 months anywhere in the country. Portland, Phoenix, New York, whatever works." Simone looked at the envelope. She didn't touch it. Or, she said. He looked up. You phrased it as the appropriate response, she said, which means it's not the only one. He was quiet for a moment. Or you stay, on the property, under protection. He chose his next words carefully, which she noticed. He was not a man who chose words carelessly, and she was beginning to understand that when he slowed down it meant something. Jasper has had 3 different caregivers in 18 months. He doesn't connect with any of them. He doesn't talk to them about real things. A pause. He talked to you for 40 minutes this morning about his stuffed dog and whether fish can feel happy. He hadn't talked that much at one time since before his mother died. Outside, the February sky over the suburb was the color of old pewter, pressing low against the bare trees. Inside the compound, everything was very quiet, the specific quiet of a house where all the noise has been moved to another room and locked in. Simone thought about her apartment. The couch that had taken 4 people to carry up the stairs and would have taken 4 people to carry back down, and which she would now never get a security deposit on because there was a window broken on the ground floor. The loan payment that was going to wreck her credit, whether she was standing in her own kitchen or standing here. The fish. She thought about Jasper's face in the alley, looking for something to hold on to, and finding her eyes. She thought about Holt in a chair next to his son's hospital bed all night, not because someone told him to, not because it was strategic, simply because his kid was in that bed and there was nowhere else on earth he was going to be. People like that existed. She'd always believed that. Her whole career was built on that belief, that when things went worst, someone would stay. Most people walked past the alley. Some people stopped. And the people who stopped weren't necessarily the ones with the easiest lives or the cleanest hands. Sometimes they were just the ones who couldn't make themselves keep walking. I have conditions, she said. Something shifted in his expression. Name them. I keep working. She held his gaze directly. I'm not a decoration, and I'm not a live-in nanny, and I'm not a person whose life gets put on hold. I'm a nurse, and nursing is what I do, and I need to keep doing it. You can arrange whatever security you feel is necessary around that, but I go to work. He nodded once. And Jasper goes outside. She didn't back down. Real outside, not through a window. Children need daylight and noise and the ability to fall off things and get back up. Supervised. I understand that. I'm not asking you to change who you are or how this works. But he's 7, and he's been through something genuinely scary, and the worst thing you can do for a 7-year-old is make the world feel smaller and more controlled than it already felt. Holt was quiet for long enough that she started to wonder if she'd miscalculated. Then, those are reasonable conditions. She picked up her bourbon glass again, mostly because she needed something to do with her hands, and looked at him over the rim of it. He looked back. Through the closed door she could hear Mrs. Dolan's voice somewhere on the 2nd floor, the distant sound of a small boy asking about something with tremendous earnestness. One more thing, she said. He waited. Pepper, my fish, I need to know someone went back for him. She watched Holt's face. If your guys were in that apartment and nobody secured a fishbowl on the kitchen counter, I need to know that before I commit to anything. Holt Decker stared at her. It was, she would think later, probably the most genuinely surprised she would ever see him look. Your fish, he said. One-eyed betta named Pepper. Kitchen counter, near the window. She didn't blink. He can't survive 48 hours without a filter check, and I would like him retrieved. Something moved across Holt's face that had not been there before. Something that didn't quite know where it was going or how to get there, but was making the attempt. The faintest indication of a smile, not fully formed, not practiced, entirely real. I'll have someone go now, he said. She nodded, set her glass down. Then I think we have a deal. The compound was quiet around them. Somewhere upstairs, Jasper Decker was asking Mrs. Dolan what time the nurse lady was coming back. Outside the window, the February sky was beginning, very slowly, to lighten at its edges. Simone Vale had walked into an alley off West Huron Street with no plan, no backup, and $22 in her account. She'd come out the other side with a fish to rescue, a 7-year-old who needed someone to talk to, and a deal with the most dangerous man in Chicago that she intended to hold him to in every specific detail. She wasn't afraid of complicated, she never had been. She'd just never been offered quite this particular version of it before. If this story kept you holding your breath from the very first paragraph, you are not alone. And we want to know, would you have stopped for Jasper in that alley? Would you have stayed? Drop your answer in the comments below, because we genuinely read every single one. And if Simone's courage and Holt's quiet devastation hit you the way they hit us, hit that like button and subscribe to Sadie's Romance Library right now. Because this world is just getting started, and something tells us the next chapter between these two is going to be even harder to put down.